Happy Monday, everybody. I hope you're having a good day today so far and had a good week. And I guess having a good new year. It's been, what, 4 weeks? Has it been, well, I know I've done a few episodes over the break, but they weren't really planned out. They were just like spur of the moment things that I did because I just miss recording so much. But this is the first episode that I'm really doing since Christmas that's been planned out. And the reason I decided to take a break because I think I had just been running myself ragged with working, 50, 60 hours a week and also fitting in 2 to 3 podcast episodes every week on top of that. And I think I was just running myself down and I needed a break. I needed to get completely over being sick and just start feeling better, which I do. I feel back to 100% for sure, which is nice. And also, as of yesterday, yesterday was the 1 year anniversary of when I started my podcast. So I recorded my first episode January 9th of 2020. And it's so crazy to think that it's already been a year. Not growing as fast as I would have liked it to have happened, or as I would hoped it would have happened. But I've always said, even when I first started the podcast, that if it didn't grow to this big thing, which is, what I would like it to be, but if it stayed small with just a few people that listened to it regularly, that was fine too, because it wasn't about making money or anything like that. It's about doing something that I enjoy. So if this is just a hobby, then that's fine. I would like it to be something that I could eventually make a living off of and be able to make more money than what I make doing what I do already and better take care of my family and things like that. That would be nice. But if that's not what's meant to happen, I'm okay with that. Now, I did post an episode on Sunday, my Sunday Fun Day with Jana, which we've decided that we may try to do that every Sunday. That sounds like it could be fun, just like a little new series, 30-minute series every Sunday, just talking about something random, whatever we feel like it. Or if anybody has ideas of what they want us to talk about. But we didn't talk about New Year's resolutions. And now let me tell you, I don't like New Year's resolutions because they never work. And I don't think you should wait to the new year to make resolutions. I think if you want to make it, you should make it no matter when it is. But I did make a couple. But the biggest one I made was to not miss any church services unless I'm really sick, or unless my job gets in the way. If I can avoid my job getting in the way, which most of the times I can, then I wasn't going to miss any more church. And I prayed about it, and I said, that if this podcast is meant to take off and to be something, and to go where I would like it to go, then I'm going to do my part, which is just to, go to church, live right, do what I know God would want me to do, and He'll take care of the rest. It says in the Bible, you have not because you ask not. And that if you're living faithfully, that the things that you want and that you ask for, God will give them to you. But you also have to take into account that if it's not His will, but I think a podcast doesn't really necessarily mean anything different. So I think it's something that could be granted to me if I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. So with that said, we're going to read our daily promise, which that's not something that I intend to change on the podcast. I am looking at doing some different things to maybe make it more interactive and enjoyable for people, but this is one thing that will never change. So it says, "For we are made partakers of Christ if we hold the beginning of our confidence steadfast unto the end." Hebrews 3:14. Here we have an encouragement to keep on walking the walk. God will help us to persevere. He would never give us something that we cannot do through Him. As partakers of Christ, we have the privilege of having Christ's righteousness put on us. Then God sees Christ's righteousness instead of our sin. We are allowed this privilege if we persevere in the practice and proclamation of Christianity. Well, no, we're allowed this privilege. I'm going to reword that. We're allowed that privilege simply for believing and accepting Jesus as our Lord and Savior. That's all you have to do. And then you're allowed that privilege. Okay. So, real quickly, for those who may not have heard, Bob Saget died yesterday. Not something I'm going to talk about on the podcast, but just to acknowledge, it's really sad when people pass away, especially people that you don't believe were saved, because you know where they're probably most likely at, which is not a good thing. So, I mean, prayers to his family and friends, because that's got to be hard. I couldn't imagine losing somebody. I just noticed that a lot of famous people have passed away here recently. I know with Betty White and John Madden, they were very elderly people, but still, nonetheless, a lot of famous people have passed away lately, and it makes you start thinking about yourself and your family and your friends, and that you could go at any moment, really. So, prayers to his friends and family. Okay, let's talk about Alec Baldwin real quick. We haven't talked about him since the whole incident on the Rust set with him killing, I can't remember her name now, Helena Hutchins. So this article here from Daily Wire by Megan Basham, it says that he posted a video rant and insists that he's complying with the Rust investigation despite not yet turning over his cell phone. So last week, New Mexico authorities investigating the shooting death of cinematographer Helena Hutchins on the set of the film Rust issued a warrant for star Alec Baldwin's cell phone, seemingly in response to a spat of negative media coverage resulting from this news. Baldwin posted a rambling video to Instagram Saturday in which he insisted he is cooperating with authorities. Any suggestion that I am not complying with requests or orders or demands or search warrants about my phone, that's bullcrap, that's a lie, the actor said in the nearly 5-minute video he recorded in his car and then posted to the social media platform. Baldwin then claimed his delay in turning over his phone is a result of bureaucratic red tape, saying, "This is a process where one state makes the request of another state. Someone from another state can't come to you and say, 'Give me your phone, give me this, give me that.' They can't do that. They have to go through the state you live in. That is a process that takes time. They have to specify what exactly they want. They can't just go through your phone and take your photos or your love letters to your wife or what have you." Actually, I think they can if they have a warrant for your phone, but maybe I'm wrong. He added, "We are 1000% going to comply with all that. We're perfectly fine with that. Are you possibly trying to delete stuff off of your phone before they get a hold of it that you don't want them to see?" So Baldwin then directly criticized the New York Post, which published a story Friday that included expert opinion that Baldwin's reluctance to turn over his phone could indicate that it contains potentially incriminating evidence. The Post reported that investigators believe Baldwin's phone contains key information, but that he has so far failed to relinquish it despite authorities issuing a warrant for the device. So the story went on to say that there could be incriminating evidence on the phone, or it might be for privacy reasons, said Kevin Kieran, a former Nassau District Attorney's Office who's now a criminal defense lawyer. If he deleted text messages or call records, then he would face the possibility of criminal contempt, said Huron, who works at the Long Island firm Burkett Epstein Huron. Or if there are personal messages, for example, between he and his wife, it's not shocking that he wouldn't want them in the public domain. Caron said the move flies in the face of the actor's previous vow to fully cooperate with police. It's not consistent with his pledge early on to cooperate with law enforcement, he said. It certainly looks suspicious to the average person. But the thing is I don't think that the police care anything about your messages between you and your wife. I don't think they're going to go leak them out to anybody. They don't care about that, honestly. So in response to the Post reporting, Baldwin said, "Consider the source. Sidney Poitier, one of the icons of the business, one of the kings of movie royalty, dies, and on the cover of the Post, they have other lies and bullcrap and nonsense," he fumed. Baldwin finished, "It's all going to work out, regardless of what they say in these right-wing rag sheets and people who are all about hate." I'm sorry, is he saying that the New York Post is right-wing? Yeah, last I checked, that's not the case at all. So maybe because they have had some decent stories lately. So I'm not sure what that's talking about. Continuing on about Alec Baldwin real quick, I wanted to, Brodigan wrote an article on Louder with Crowder about Nicolas Cage blasting Alec Baldwin over the shooting, saying that actors need to know how to use a gun. So I'm curious as to what Nicolas Cage said. So, investigations are ongoing into the tragic 2021 rushed shooting of a cinematographer at the hands of Alec Baldwin. Well, we're not going to recap the story because we already know what happened. He was rehearsing a scene with a gun he thought was unloaded. He pointed the gun at the cinematographer, and somehow without pulling the trigger, the gun went off, and she was killed. Alec Baldwin feels no guilt in the matter, but is very thankful for the support he has gotten during this trying time. The discussion now turns to the use of guns on movie sets. Nicolas Cage has thoughts on the matter. Hollywood Reporter held an actors' roundtable in which Cage took part. The topic was the tragic shooting and discussion of whether there should be guns on sets at all. Cage said he wasn't placing blame and wasn't talking about anybody, but come on now. So he said, "You need to know how to fight, you need to know how to ride a motorcycle, and you do need to know how to use a gun. You do. You need to take the time to know what the procedure is. Those are part of the job profiles. Every stuntman needs to be a movie star, and every movie star needs to be a stuntman. That's just part of the profile, and that's all I'm going to say about it." Spoiler, when people say that's all they're going to say about it, they have a lot more they want to say about it. Cage found his name tied to the incident. Rust was only the second movie for inexperienced armor Hannah Gutierrez-Reed. Her first movie was with Nicolas Cage, where her inexperience almost led to Nicolas Cage having his eardrums blown out. As for Alec Baldwin, he recently said in an Instagram video he's going to comply with the search warrant for his cell phone, even though he has yet to turn over his cell phone. Okay, so, Nicolas Cage commenting, and I can just picture Nicolas Cage saying something like that. That's all I'm going to say. I love Nicolas Cage, and I remember reading about the armory person who they had a lot of problems on the set of the Nicolas Cage movie, and they had a lot of problems with her on the Rust set. Complaints that she wasn't doing things properly and the safety protocols were not being followed. So it's something that was going on for quite some time. Now, let's talk about crazy teachers. A teacher puts her son in her trunk while driving him to a testing site so she didn't catch COVID, and the police didn't arrest her. This is how crazy that all this fear-mongering about this has made people. We'll see how much I can get away with talking about that anymore. I know you can say a lot more about it nowadays because the left is starting to come around and starting to say things that we on the right have been saying for 2 years, but probably still need to be careful. So a woman, allegedly a mother and a teacher, drove her son to get a Rona test in the trunk of her car so she didn't catch it herself. They live in the same house. As I collect my thoughts and you watch this video, Please ponder to yourself how much CNN you think this dumb broad watches.
What we do know is that she is facing a felony charge. We don't know if she'll be allowed to turn herself in or if deputies are still out looking for her tonight. With a warrant in hand, deputies went into this Jersey Village home looking for Sarah Beam. The Cy-Fair ISD 10th grade English teacher is wanted for felony child endangerment.
When the kids come to my room, it's important for me to make it a comfortable environment where they want to be.
But investigators with the Cy-Fair ISD Police Department say she wasn't worried about her own son's comfort when he possibly came down with the coronavirus. Charging documents show that on Monday, Beam took the 13-year-old to a testing site at Pridgeon Stadium, unrestrained in the trunk of her car. Beam told the district's health director at the site that she was trying to keep herself from being exposed to the virus. That person had the child taken out of the trunk and called 911. People we talked to called Beam's behavior bizarre, especially considering the fact that her career centers around children.
She's a teacher. I'd rip her license from her in 5 minutes.
Beam is currently on leave from her job and still wanted by deputies who left her Jersey Village home Friday night without making an arrest.
So the strangest part to me is this is how dumb these people are that are so fearful of getting sick, is that you put them in the trunk of your car as to not catch it, but you live in the same household. What are you going to do? Put him out in the doghouse until he's no longer sick? Are you going to go stay at a hotel and just leave him at home by himself? And the fact that she's a teacher and she has to keep the well-being of her students in mind, but when it comes to her own kid, her health was more important. Her safety was more important. And that's been the biggest problem with everything that's been going on with this right now, is adults putting their safety and their health above children. Not just children, their own children. It doesn't matter. And we force kids, well, not we, they are forcing kids to do things that are borderline child abuse, all to feel safe, for themselves to feel better, because it has nothing to do with the kids. They don't really care about the kids. This isn't to protect them or keep them safe, keep them from getting sick, because we know that's not a problem. It's only about making them feel better. This woman would no longer be a teacher. So, according to ABC 13, police showed up at Sarah Beam's house to arrest her with the warrant that was out for her arrest, but they left the house without arresting anyone and wouldn't say why. Beam is being charged with child endangerment. Let's walk through this. Sarah Beam, a mother and a teacher, is sitting at home, no doubt getting her daily dose of fear from cable news and watching to see what Anthony the Science Fauci's latest orders are. Her son comes to her and says, "Hey mama, I have a dry cough and I can't really smell anything." She tells her son to get her keys while she Googles the nearest testing site, since that's what Joe Biden told her to do. She then tells her son to get in the trunk of her car as she drives him to the testing site. Once at the site, the people administering the test hear a noise coming out of the trunk. She then says through her 3 masks and face visor, "Oh, that's my son. He's the one who may have the Rona," as if she's the normal one in this situation. This woman needs to be arrested and have her teaching license urinated on in front of her, but I'd like to see an interview to find out what she was thinking. Well, she clearly wasn't thinking. These people don't think any longer. They just follow what they're told to do. AOC had come under a huge backlash of going to Florida and partying it up without masking and social distancing, and doing the complete opposite of what she demands her constituents be doing. And then she tests positive after hitting it up in Miami. Also, I didn't get to talk about this when it happened, but AOC seems to think that the only reason that the right, or men on the right, criticize her is because they want to date her. I watched a YouTube video, Mr. Reagan did it, talking about this whole thing and how, she's her ego is that inflated to think that that's the only reason she would be being criticized is because they secretly want to date her. And he mentioned, that, she's pretty, but, not his type of pretty, that he wouldn't actually date her. And I was thinking to myself, when I first heard about AOC, and I really didn't know much about her at the time, the first thing I'd ever been told about her is that she didn't know the 3 branches of government. And I remember my stepmom showing me this video and saying, yeah, this woman is in Congress. And I thought, no way. This is just not possible. She's dumb. But I didn't know her radical views. But even then, so I don't think she's pretty. I don't think she's pretty. I don't think she's cute. And it has nothing to do with her personality making her ugly, which we know personalities can make people ugly or attractive. It has nothing to do with that, because before I ever knew who she was, I didn't think she was pretty. But then I was called out, and they asked me if I thought that any Hispanic women were pretty. And I thought, because I think that one Hispanic woman is not pretty, that means I don't think that any are. And I'm like, is she trying to say that I'm racist against Hispanics? I didn't bite. I didn't take the bait to lash out. I just said, it doesn't matter who she is, what her race is. I just don't think she's pretty. Attractiveness is subjective. And AOC does not meet my standards. Sorry, that's just how I feel. But not sorry. Anyway, so she announced Sunday evening that she tested positive, and the announcement comes just a week after the New York representative was caught vacationing in Florida and partying at a drag club with celebrity Billy Porter while skipping voting in person at the Capitol in Washington, D.C. because of the ongoing emergency pandemic. And this is by Tim Meads, by the way. So Representative AOC has received a positive test for COVID. She is experiencing symptoms and recovering at home, her office said in a statement. The Congresswoman received her booster shot this fall and encourages everyone to get their booster and follow all CDC guidance, the office added. Speaking of Twitter, I'm going to post it in the description. I'm not really going to talk about it because I don't want to get this video taken down. But there is a Twitter page that y'all should check out. I think the Twitter handle is just Rare. Rare. And all she does is retweet other people's tweets about adverse reactions to the Fauci ouchie. That's it. And a lot of interesting stories about people and their Fauci ouchies, for real. So I'm going to link that, so maybe y'all can go check that out if y'all want. So while AOC encourages others to follow the CDC guidance, the Congresswoman decidedly chose to ignore it over the New Year's holiday weekend. In a post on December 9th, the CDC advised folks to wear a mask that covers your nose and mouth to help protect yourself and others, and to stay 6 feet apart from others who don't live with you. AOC was pictured hugging and kissing Porter, who does not live with her. Why are we still throwing out the 6 feet when we know that the CDC pulled that number out of nowhere and it means nothing? I'm just wondering. It is unclear where AOC became infected with COVID, but it should be noted that according to the New York Times COVID-19 tracker, the state of New York has averaged 71,720 cases daily over the past 14 days. Florida has averaged 58,336 cases daily during that time. More specifically, Miami-Dade County, Florida, where AOC frolicked in the sun, has had a daily average of 15,777 new cases over the past 14 days, while AOC's adopted home county of New York City, New York, has had 39,527 daily cases over the same time period. Despite the similar, if not better, numbers to Democratic-run states per the NYT, some progressives have attempted to label Florida Governor Ron DeSantis as Death Santis for his supposed dangerous approach to the pandemic and letting citizens make responsible choices for themselves. When asked about the irony of AOC and other Democrats visiting Florida of all places, DeSantis told reporters, quote, If I had $1 for every lockdown politician who decided to escape to Florida over the last 2 years, I'd be pretty doggone wealthy, man, let me tell you. So AOC's vacation was harshly criticized for her apparent hypocrisy and disregard for the virus, which Democratic leaders have been warning is still a major threat, warranting government intervention such as mask mandates, Fauci-ouchie requirements, and other efforts in places like AOC's New York City and beyond. The Congresswoman responded to such criticism in part by claiming her political opponents simply wanted to date her. Believe me, AOC, they don't. I remember this claim being made about Tucker Carlson when he used to talk about her and make fun of her, and they said that he was secretly pining for AOC. No, he wasn't. Neither are any of these other men. I can promise you that. Continuing talking about COVID really quickly, I want to mention that the CDC's Rochelle Walensky has admitted the flaw of the PCR testing, and now conservatives are demanding answers. These masks that they wear, they look like ducks. I don't know what kind of mask they're wearing, but they simply just look like ducks. Idiots. Anyway, so as part of the CDC updated COVID guidance, individuals no longer have to obtain a negative PCR test in quarantine after isolating for 5 days so long as they are asymptomatic. CDC Director Rochelle Walensky explained that it's because we now know that PCR tests often show positive COVID cases well beyond the point of transmissibility. In effect, we would be needlessly keeping people in isolation if we depended on PCR tests. That reasoning enraged many Americans who have long argued that exact sentiment and wondered how long this fact has been known by the medical establishment. Yep, I've talked about how inaccurate and unreliable these tests are. Why are they just now saying it? And I'm telling you, when the left starts saying the same thing that we've been saying for 2 years, we do not need to let that slide on by and not bring notice to that. The minute you hear a politician or Fauci or anybody say the same thing that you have said for 2 years, you call them out on it. You don't just let that go, because that's the problem, is we don't call people out on their bullcrap. We just let it go. On ABC News Good Morning America, Walensky stated Wednesday morning that the PCR test can show positive cases for as long as 3 months. Yeah, of course, we knew that too. The newly updated CDC guidelines don't require testing at the end of isolation because PCR tests can stay positive for up to 12 weeks. So we would have people in isolation for a very long time if we were relying on PCRs, Walensky said. She also addressed Tuesday's news from the FDA that according to early data, rapid antigen tests may be less sensitive when it comes to the Omicron variant. We do know that the most sensitive test you can do is a PCR test. So if you have symptoms and you have a negative antigen test, we do ask you to go and get a PCR to make sure those symptoms are not attributable to COVID. As the Daily Wire reported earlier Wednesday, Walensky also said that the CDC shortened the isolation period in part based on their opinion of what the American people could tolerate. Walensky's comments came during an interview with CNN's Caitlin Collins. I was going to bring this up, but since they already are, it says, so Collins says, so from what you are saying, it sounds like this decision has had just as much to do with business as it did with the science. It really had a lot to do with what we thought people would be able to tolerate, Walensky replied. We have seen relatively low rates of isolation for all of this pandemic. Some science has demonstrated that less than a third of people are isolating when they need to. We really want to make sure we have guidance in this moment where we were going to have a lot of disease that could be adhered to, that people were willing to adhere to, and that spoke to specifically when people were maximally infectious. So it really spoke to both behaviors and to what people were able to do. Basically, we're tired of y'all sitting at home and not out there working and making us money, so get back to work, basically. So in response, hundreds of conservatives were outraged over the apparent failure of PCR tests to accurately capture the threat of the virus. This means that for the past 21 months, people sat home for extra days and weeks because their tests came back with an irrelevant positive. We didn't know this 6, 12, 18 months ago, really? And this is from political commentator Yossi Gestitner. I don't know how you say that. Robbie Starbuck tweeted out, "I'm old enough to remember when we were called conspiracy theorists for telling people that PCR tests were terribly unreliable. 2 years later, the CDC finally caught up and acknowledged reality." And hundreds of billions of dollars lost in the U.S. economy, millions with mental health issues locked away for months at a time, all because, until now, the CDC was too afraid to admit PCR tests are flawed. That's Daniel Bostic tweeted that out. So that's what I'm saying. They're finally now saying the same thing, and we must always acknowledge that and call them out for it, and don't let them get away with that. Now, LA County sues a local cafe for bucking the COVID-19 rules. The owner says this fight is about defending our freedoms. So finally, some people in Los Angeles are sticking up. Los Angeles County filed suit last week against a local cafe that has refused to abide by heavy-handed regulations and health codes despite amassing fines totaling tens of thousands of dollars. Pardon me, I had to yawn. I may note to you that this is 3 a.m. on Monday morning as I record this. So, Novo Cafe in Westlake Village has defied the Los Angeles County Health Department for months, keeping indoor and outdoor dining open while refusing to require that employees wear masks. Novo Cafe owner Massimo Forti told the Daily Wire that he has no intention of submitting to the illegal mandates. LA County health officials have issued Forti and I'm not sure, and his restaurant dozens of fines totaling nearly $100,000. Forti said that he refuses to pay a cent of it. "What they're doing is unconstitutional and illegal," he told the Daily Wire. "This fight is about defending our freedoms." In the lawsuit filed last week, the county accused Novo Cafe of putting the health of their workers, customers, and the community at risk, according to the Los Angeles Times. Novo Cafe remained open to indoor and outdoor dining last winter in violation of county rules. The cafe has also continued to operate for nearly a year after the county pulled its public health permit in February 2021 over its repeated violations. The community has rallied around Forti's Cafe and its stand against county health officials. "The community loves us," he said, as customers continue to gather at Novo despite the county's attempts to shut the cafe down. Forti has not fundraised to cover the fines or his legal fees, telling the Daily Wire that he intends to continue fighting and figure things out as they come. Los Angeles County has struggled to enforce its health orders on many local businesses. In August, a local news outlet conducted an unofficial audit of eateries in the area and found that in many restaurants, employees and patrons were going maskless in violation of the order. Oh, how dare they! The I-Team documented employees and customers not wearing masks indoors at restaurants across LA County, from the trendy Escuela Tiquiera near the Grove to a string of eateries in the Pico Robinson district, including the Beverly Hills Bagel Company and the Pico Cafe, NBC4 reported at the time. In many instances, such as with the Beverly Hills Bagel Company, Pico Cafe, and Escuela Tiquiera, the owners claimed to have not known that their employees were violating the health codes and promised stricter enforcement when approached by NBC4. Forti was one of the few who unapologetically challenged the health codes. "I believe in freedom of choice, so the mask is just, in my opinion, a sign of submission," Forti said at the time, adding that he would continue to fight the health orders on principle and the fact that everything the health department is doing is unconstitutional. During his interview with the Daily Wire, Forti urged more people to stand up against the public health department. "We're looking for patriots in all industries, business, legal, everything." See, I love it when people finally wake up and start defying it and going against what they're told to do, because it means absolutely nothing. Now, let's talk about Biden real quick. He is being blasted for the graph that they had used online, claiming that he created the most monthly jobs ever. Now, if you'll remember, they did this with the graph about lowering the gas prices. But the graph that they used, it was, I think it was zoomed in, basically, so you're not, I can't remember exactly, but basically, if they would have used the graph properly, you would not have seen a drop in the gas prices. And 2 cents, anyway, is not a decrease in gas prices. Just, that doesn't mean anything. So, Twitter users excoriated the Biden admin after the White House posted a graph claiming that more jobs were created under President Biden than any other president in history. Kind of like how they said that he got the most votes in American history. 81 million. Under President Biden, the economy has created more jobs per month than under any other president ever. The White House tweeted from its official account Friday. The tweet included a graph that claimed to show that Biden created more than 550,000 monthly jobs, according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. Biden's numbers, according to the graph, were orders of magnitude higher than those achieved by former President Donald Trump, who lost more than 50,000 jobs during his tenure, according to the graph. President Barack Obama, who gained more than 100,000 jobs, President George W. Bush, who gained less than 50,000, President Bill Clinton, who gained between 200 and 250,000, President George H.W. Bush, who gained just over 50,000, and President Ronald Reagan, who gained just over 150,000 jobs month over month. Okay, so I did see this graph on Twitter, and it's just so comical because there's just absolutely no way. It's not even possible, for one. So, my goodness. So, the White House was almost immediately lambasted by conservatives on Twitter. So, Rep. Andy Bigg says, Joe's got jokes, and retweeted the graph. He's a congressman from Arizona. Noam Blum said, embarrassing, and he's the Tablet Magazine Chief Technical Officer. Scott Lenacom, I'm not sure how you say that. He said, I like to imagine the annoyed White House economist tasked with creating this chart, knowing just how silly it is. Pretty funny, to be honest. Kimberly Klasick says, the Biden admin believes Americans are this stupid. The red wave is inevitable. I don't necessarily like Kimberly Klasick. I learned a lot of stuff about her through Candace Owens. I did an episode about all the stuff that was found out about Kimberly Klasick and how she is a Democrat running as a Republican. So be careful if you vote for her. Even Washington Post fact checker Glenn Kessler took issue with the White House claims. A huge problem with this apples and oranges chart. It compares monthly job growth of 4 and 8 year terms with just 1 year of Biden. Trump used to do the same thing until his record was spoiled by the job losses in his last year. Don't count your chickens before they hatch, Kessler wrote. Other responses to the tweet, Kenny Wallace said, lol, COVID shut down companies and workers were laid off. So this is a graph of those people simply coming back to work. Yes, they're simply just going back to work. These are not new jobs created. These are jobs that were abandoned during the pandemic, and people are reclaiming them. Not the same. Libertarian Party tweeted, add propaganda to the list of things this admin utterly fails at. Kim Iverson said, I can't believe the White House tweeted this. This is just another example of their gaslighting. Ellers.eth said, taking credit for jobs simply coming back when we are still net negative is misleading and weak. Pradheep J. Shanker said, wow, Obama sucked. Yeah, he did. So the Biden admin published the graph on the heels of a disappointing jobs report that saw just 199,000 jobs added to the economy in December, less than half of leading economists' expectations. So the unemployment rate dropped to 3.9%, outpacing economists' expectations of 4.1%. The share of working adults, however, still has not returned to pre-pandemic levels as many continue to stay out of the workforce, according to Axios, which I believe has a lot to do with the mandates and things like that. Employers want to create new jobs and are hiring the formerly unemployed, driving down the jobless rate, Axios reported Friday, but that isn't coaxing more people to work. The share of adults in the labor force was unchanged in December and remains 1.5 percentage points below pre-pandemic levels. The report preceded a dip in the purchasing power of the U.S. dollar, which fell in value compared to a basket of other currencies. As Reuters reported, the dollar index fell 0.269% at 96.001. Even with Friday's weakness, the dollar was still on track for a weekly gain, its first in 3 weeks. And I think there was a report about the dollar failing. So, it says that the U.S. dollar slips after the poor jobs report came out, right? But even the euro was up 0.3% to $1.13 as it strengthened against the greenback in the wake of the payrolls report after showing little reaction to data showing Eurozone inflation rose to 5% in December. Eurozone policymakers have said they expect inflation to gradually slow down in 2022, and a rate hike will likely not be needed this year. The Japanese yen strengthened 0.12% versus the greenback at 115.71 per dollar. The yen has taken the brunt of the damage, while the greenback has strengthened recently, with the dollar hitting a 5-year high versus the yen earlier this week. Sterling was poised for its third straight weekly gain and was last trading at $1.35, up 0.24% on the day, even after data showed growth in Britain's construction sector cooled in December as the Omicron variant of the virus spread. So today's national unemployment rate fell below 4% to 3.9%. So, yeah, so it's not just the jobs economy, it's the dollar is failing. It's not doing as good as we would like. And this really should have, the economy should have really started booming again after the initial shutdowns and opening stuff back up. But they kept things locked down and they caused people to quit their jobs over mandates. And they've really screwed us. But in all fairness, we've screwed ourselves because we complied. We didn't fight back. We just left and just let them do whatever they wanted. So the last thing I want to do is I found this on Louder with Prouder, and I thought I would share it because we just don't have anything wholesome nowadays. And this just seemed like a wholesome story to end the show on. So this is a cancer-surviving 6-year-old bags his first buck and gets overcome with emotion. So Brodigan writes, I am of the impression that if you are a kid and you beat cancer, you should be given carte blanche to celebrate however you feel like it. Of course, there are still some laws that need to be followed. Though, if the kid wants to have a drink and get high, that's between them and their parents. I'm not one to judge. I'm also not the one who dropped off a bottle of bourbon and a bag of edibles with a note that says, cancer is a duty head. 6-year-old Case McIver wanted to go hunting with his dad, and on that hunt, he snagged his first buck. If you're getting misty thinking about it, wait until you see Case's reaction. So, if you're audio only, then you're just going to have to go to YouTube to see it.
You got your first buck, dude. You dropped it. You did it, man. Hey. Buddy.
The video was shared by Ridge Rock Hunt Company, a company that works with vetted outfitters to put you and your friends on a hunt of a lifetime. I'm assuming that they are the ones that set up the hunt for Case and his father. It says, God bless you, Case. After kicking cancer's butt, I can't think of a better way to celebrate than in the great outdoors and spending quality time with your dad. On behalf of all of us here at louderwithcrowder.com website, we're praying for you. If you're on audio only, you gotta go check out the video. It's so sweet. And so that's why I wanted to share it, because it was just wholesome. And I thought, let's end a bunch of crappy news with something at least, happy and wholesome. So I'm going to leave it here for today. Thank you for joining me for my first episode of the new year, or of season 2, whatever it is. I don't really know if that's how the seasons are going to work, but apparently I'm starting season 2 today. So thank you for joining me. Don't forget to go to Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, subscribe to the podcast. You can leave me reviews. That would be great, and follow it. And then you can check me out on YouTube. I have quite a few videos. Go check them out, like them, share them around. But the most important thing you can do for me is to subscribe to the channel and then hit the notification bell so you know every time that I upload a new video. Also, I would like some feedback on this episode if you're watching on YouTube, because this is the first episode I've done using our new microphone, the HyperX microphone that we got, and I'm very excited to see how it sounds when I listen to the playback to do the editing. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I haven't quite decided what kind of schedule that I intend to do for podcasting, but I do know there will be an episode every Monday, and Jana and I are going to try and do the new series, Sunday Fun Day, so a new episode every Sunday for that, and possibly an extra episode here and there during the week. Not a guaranteed, but an extra one if possible. But for sure, Mondays. Anyway, I hope you have a good rest of your day, and God bless.